In this video, we'll highlight both the power and flexibility of Microvellum when it comes to closets. Now, Microvellum is an Autodesk partner. We are working within an AutoCAD environment where Microvellum is really a palette within this space. The first thing we'll do with Microvellum is to open up a new room. A new room can be structured however you like. This could be an entire home that you're working in, or just a particular area within that home. Now, one of the first things we'll do as we begin our design process here in Model Space of AutoCAD is use what's called an external reference. This could be anything from a PDF to an image file, but in our case we'll use an AutoCAD DWG file, and I have an example of that on my desktop. Now, this DWG file could be a file that you receive from an architect or contractor that you're working with. I can then place that anywhere I want within my drawing area. This can be moved around as, again, this external reference for whatever area of this home, in our case, that we want to use for our design. Now, Microvellum can, of course, do cabinetry, like in this case in this kitchen. We're going to focus in on a couple of these closets over here. Now, in this, we of course have more information than we need in our drawing submittal that we can very quickly graphically turn off through a freeze command within AutoCAD. So in this sense, we clean up our drawing the way that we want it to be seen here for our submittal. We may also have more information than we need to see around the area of our submittal. We can very quickly create a clipping boundary that just isolates the area of our design that we care about in this case. Now, from this we have a basis to work off of with very little work, but again, the level of professionalism goes way up with using AutoCAD's tools. Now, within our Microvellum process, we'll start over here with just drawing a simple wall to place the products, or product in our case, that will be a closet system. Now, the scale of your drawing can be set to whatever you need. In our case, we'll just use this simple wall and go to our Draw Products area. Within this, you get your first glance here at what we call our product library. We have different expansions within this library. Our focus today is on our closet products, closet wardrobe, and master closets. Now, we'll focus in on this Master Straight Designer closet. This product we'll place on a wall with the left anchor point right at this location. We select the wall and either click a point to place that or type a number to be that dimension away from that circular reference. Now, we of course know the size of our wall there is 124 inches and a half. We can also just double click in any of these fields to take a dimension from point A to point B if we didn't happen to know that information already. In our case, we want to be just 2 inches short of that, so we'll plug in 122 and a half. Now, the power of the library when it comes to closet products is really key to this process. Certain specifics of library construction methods, your default hardwares, materials, and those things are really predefined, but can be configured to a very deep level when it comes to customizing that process the way that you want it to be. Now, this individual product inherits those defaults, but of course, we want to be able to make those changes as needed on a product-by-product basis as well. So these are, again, where the product prompts, or the options, live and breathe for this specific product. In this product, we get a taste of the power of the library. We can specify a number of bays, like 4 in this instance. Based on this selection, we have tabs that populate above for each individual bay, 1 through 4. Within these bays, we then have additional options. Within bay 1, I would like to have a double hanging rail, for instance, and we're working left to right here. Within bay 2, that should be something like shoe shelves. And within bay 3, we can specify that bay 3 should be actually a center shelf. So we're going to break this individual bay up now into 2 individual bays. And we can change the location of that center shelf as needed. In our case, we'll just say up top. We'll specify that to be something like pigeonholes. And down below, we'll say that's just adjustable shelves. That's fine. Bay 4. We can also add a center shelf to that. And we'll say up top is going to be our hanging rail. And down below, adjustable shelves is also fine. But you can kind of taste the power of the library in this process, and to really see that any of those options there that we are setting, those can be configured or changed at any time in this process. We just go right back into our product prompts and make those modifications. Now in this, Microvellum is drawing all of these products here, these parts, in 3D with full machining. That means that graphically what we're looking at here is exactly how these parts will be manufactured. There's not a disconnection between another secondary or even third-party software when it comes to manufacturing and machining. We can take a dimension to see the specifics of how far back is that inset in X or Y or Z value. We can of course change our visual style to more of a 3D aspect, and there's a lot going on there, no doubt. We'll change that also to an X-ray to see kind of more of a surface level of our products. Certain construction standards here that we have just predefined in this library are some cam connections. Now within this, we may look at and see, maybe we don't want to use cams. Like cams may not make any sense in a scenario like a pigeonhole there. So the power of the library, again, very simply we can go to certain options within this individual product, and for our pigeonhole specifically, we can change the construction method to something like screws. We're going to do that for the construction method in general, and also the top and bottom connections as well. Now we've made a very specific change to just one individual component or aspect to our 4-bay closet system, and graphically we see that take place. On even a deeper level, you may have scenarios where we just want to draw something that will be unique, not so much a checkbox option. At any of these parts, we can tell Microvellum to just flatten that part for us and draw it in a 2D form specific for the machining operations that will be taking place. Now from here, and using very simple AutoCAD tools, we could do things like draw a rectangle that may represent an outlet cutout through our part. Or just to show the power, a polyline, which is another word for a line within AutoCAD, that we can change to a curve at any type of serpentine shape. These are drawing entities that can then be copied out as needed for whatever purpose that you see fit. Now within Microvellum's tools, we go to our 2D machining list. This is a tool list that corresponds to your specific CNC tool list. We can grab tool number 104, specify a depth of the cutout, specify the compensation of what side of the line our tool should be on, and tell Microvellum to apply machining to that entity. And we'll do the same thing there with a right compensation for our rectangular outlet cutout. But we don't want this to be a separate aspect of what you do. We want everything to be in sync in this process. So we tell Microvellum to update that part, and graphically, in your design, in your submittal, everything stays in sync through this process. That is really a difference maker with Microvellum, is that we are a platform to this process, not a single solution for only design, only CNC, only manufacturing, or many other components of what you do. Now from here, we want to detail out this design a little further. So of course we have some automated dimensioning here. What we're going to do is create more of what's called a submittal page within this area. So very easily within Microvellum, we can create what's called a view base from that selection that we just highlighted. Using this tool, very simply, we can place a point for our first elevation of our products. We can select whether or not we want to see visible or hidden lines, or the scale, the graphical style of our components. Then wherever we move our cursor to, we can project out an additional view. Based on those selections, we then have different components that we can modify, move around as needed, change the scale of independently, very simply and quickly on the screen. From there, we can create additional projected views like a section detail going through something like our shoe shelf section. With just 2 points, we then tell Microvellum and AutoCAD to create a view based off of that. It's intelligent enough to know to label it section AA at the appropriate scale. To the next level of detail, we may want to create something like a zoomed in detail of how the 2 parts will be connecting to each other. We select that, create a projected detail view, and again, based off of however big of an area you want to explode this detail out to, you can tell Microvellum to place it there at a corresponding scale. And it again knows detail B doesn't name it the same detail A on the same page. The next component we'd like to touch on is the 3D aspect of this process. Glancing over through our 3D paper space sheet here, we have our viewport pointed to our objects. It's in an X-ray view. This very well may be all you need to provide to your customer for that 3D aspect of the feel for the area. But we don't limit that. You can really add to this process in many different ways, changing the graphical style, or going to a further step, if we go back into our model space, actually creating more of a photorealistic process here. Now within model space, we can create that photorealistic rendering without having to redraw anything in a separate piece of software. Now there's just a few tools that we can utilize to make that happen. One that I like to do is to create an oversized floor from a simple rectangle within AutoCAD. We can tell Microvellum to then make a floor from that polyline or rectangle. We can prompt the options for our wall that we drew earlier and tell Microvellum to add rendering lights to that wall. Microvellum then automatically places the lights where they need to go. You can then pan around to see where do you want to take this rendered image from, or this picture that we're going to create. I like to change to a perspective feel to give you a better feel for the area and more of a real world scenario, which would be something like this. You can zoom in nice and close, and again, wherever you would like to take this picture from, that's the view that you'd like to use here. Then we can just tell Microvellum to generate a rendered view of this area. It then goes through this process. The pixelation will begin to fill in the more time that you spend on this rendering. And this is really just a sample of the rendering capabilities that we can do within Microvellum. You can be very detailed in this process of, we're using lighting here. We could also use rendered environments, changing materials. We have a very extensive material library of not only Microvellum materials, but also AutoCAD materials for things like paint, flooring, and really the list goes on and on. It's also completely user definable and customizable by you. Whenever you're done or the image is satisfactory for your process, we can just save that image file. We'll save it right to our desktop. And then that file can be either sent independently to your customer, your prospect, potentially, without giving them additional details and the rest of the drawing process that you've accomplished. Or we can attach that image to your drawing submittal to be included in your total package. We do that by just finding the image, finding it on our desktop as that saved PNG file or image file, whatever it is, and then we just tell Microvellum where we'd like to place it. So again, without having to redraw anything in a separate piece of software, we can create photorealistic renderings. This is again just a quick sample of that, all within the same exact platform. Now stepping back for a moment, we'll go back over to our model space. We'd like to highlight some different aspects of the product library and features of that can really enhance, again, your process and make the automation of custom closets very easy as well. So we're going to highlight really how we do that with tapping into a couple of these other closet products. We'll use our U-shaped designer closet as an example of just that. We'll get rid of this lighting for now because we don't really need it for what we are accomplishing. And in this, we'll select our U-shaped designer closet and we'll pick a point to place this. Now in this process, we get to tap in again to the power of the library. So right away in these U-shaped designer closet, we can change certain aspects like we have been, such as the width. This would apply to like the back wall. On the left side, we can also double click here to very quickly pull dimension based off of the wall layout. On the right side, we can do the same. And of course, you could adjust this as you may see fit. Now within each of these sides of this U-shape, we can specify number of bays. Bay 3, or quantity of 3, would be for the center section. The left section could be 1, along with the right section of 1. Then you have similar options like we did for our straight designer product. Within Bay 1, we can say this would really apply to the corner. Let's do a double hanging rail in both Bay 1 and Bay 3. Within Bay 2, maybe that's something where we'd like drawers. We'll say add a center shelf, and then on the main component, we won't need anything inside as far as a component insert. Instead, we'll do drawer system, and we can even specify quantity of drawers. Next, we'll highlight certain hardware functionalities. Within this left Bay 1, for instance, we can highlight something like this Headache Duo lift system, a Hafele dress code pull-out system. We're continually working with hardware suppliers to really try to add as much as possible to the process so that you have access to it. And just like before, at any time we can calculate certain bay sizes. For instance, where we have drawers, we may want to be 20 inches wide, and tell Microvellum again to do the math for us in each of the corners. Now when we hit OK, again, everything about this product is now going to draw for us in 3D with full machining being shown, along with the accurate graphic representations of specific hardware. Of course, we want to see exactly what happened in this closet system. We can also tell Microvellum to isolate this whole entity for us. We do so by just selecting any part of that and isolating it graphically. Now I can pan around and see all the specifics of our closet system, how these pieces will fit together, what size am I going to have in that corner to access clothes. Maybe where are the drilling operations going to land for a component like this? We see all of that accurately depicted. Even zooming into our drawer box. This is a direct DWG file from Bloom. You get to see that as part of your design process. And of course, we see an accurate representation of exactly how this drawer front will be drilled when we send this to production. Now from here, let's say our design is done, we have approvals, and now we'd like to manufacture this project, these few closet systems. Very simply, we can do that through Microvellum by selecting the products that we would like to create what we call a work order for. Whatever that is, we can process this out. In our case, we'll just grab these two products. But we do have an extreme level of control when it comes to how you want to manufacture, what you want to manufacture, and where you want to manufacture it. In our case, we just have these two closet products. Two products are processed, a total of 146 individual parts. We're going to open up that work order and see a list of all of those 140 some odd parts. At the bottom left of our screen, we have a list of what we call processing stations. This would correspond to your processing stations. Do you have a point-to-point machine, a saw, and a nest, or maybe multiple nested operations or CNCs? Those would just be listed here. Now, the level of control in this interface is very high. We can be very selective on what parts get sent to what processing station, selecting individual parts for a variety of reasons. We can sort out these columns by material types, by item number, which room do they belong to. We can have predefined sorting methods. The level of control here and how you produce, how you manufacture is really second to none. In our case, we're going to select all of our parts and we'll send them out to our nested base processing station. We assign the parts, we process based off of the selections above to our specific CNC nested base controller. This is when actual G code is created for your specific machine. Direct communication without third-party software being able to allow you to control the way you manufacture. Processing is complete in this case. The first thing we'll do is open up results of our nested-based optimization. We do this in AutoCAD, and we see a full layout of all the individual parts with their specific operations. This is the custom operation we created earlier. Even at this stage, if you decided that you no longer need this center odd-shaped route, you can just simply delete that with AutoCAD. If you needed to have two of these outlet covers, or you needed to add it into individual other parts, you can do so here. You would make those changes graphically, moving around parts, deleting parts, adding parts to this process, and just telling Microvellum to update the G code based off of your drawing. Stepping back to the manufacturing process, we can notice a wide variety of different part labels that we can customize per size and even a specific data or information. If we do a quick preview of a 4x3 label, you get a taste of what type of information can we include on this. This is a real image of these parts, not just a cookie cutter type of block that we pull in. What product did it belong to? What's the project name? The room does it go to? The material type, edge banding, all of these different signifiers to make the process very streamlined and efficient for how you manufacture. Stepping over to our labels, we have a wide variety of labels. What took place in our little project here of 2 products? This is a summary of that. We have a list of our 2 products. We need to order 16 sheets of 3/4 inch white melamine at 4x8, 256 feet and 3 inches of edge banding. We need 64 screws, 452 cams. You get the point. Your takeoff is 100%. This is exact, ready to order without the possible rush order at the end of your production. We know exactly what you need in order to produce these parts. Other components like a nesting optimization report. This is something that you'd hand off to your operator to help he or she label your parts, to cut out those parts as the CNC is going through that process. We have the ability to automate barcode scanning if your machine's capable of doing that. A product detail report. This report is per product, a list of all the individual parts, their cut sizes, even graphically being able to see different elevations, plans for custom products like the one that we designed together. If you do any buyouts like your drawer systems or drawer fronts, automate those in a simple report. Hand that report off to your the company that you're buying those from. The other component of this that we have not touched on yet is the ability to create estimates. You don't have to draw anything to create an estimate. We just need that work order to be created. The way we handle estimating is extremely powerful. It's extremely accurate. This would be an estimate that you could potentially hand off to your customer, really just giving them a list of the products used, or maybe this is set up by room with a total cost. You can then control things like sales tax or certain markup percentages, or if you're not doing any installation or shipping, by just checking those boxes and resubmitting the form. But where is this information coming from? That is really the power in the estimating process that Microvellum can either greatly enhance your current estimating process with, or really replace it as well. This report is a report that's more behind the scenes of how much did this project actually cost us. The materials is really quite easy. We just saw a takeoff of how many materials do we need. This is set up to be square footage, so 475 square feet of white melamine. This is a total cost of our sheet stock. And of course the same is happening with certain hardware and edge banding as we go through. The labor aspect, though, is really the impressive part to me. Certain things like manufacturing, we know within our just couple of closets there, we know that there are exactly 1,716 vertical drilling operations that have to take place. You then tell Microvellum how many vertical drilling operations can you do per minute. And if you're using a CNC, maybe it's something like 25 per minute. You then can set the labor rate per hour to operate your CNC, the payment that you have on that, the electricity, the person operating it, whatever it is. Now, for just vertical drilling, that's going to cost your business $286. Typically, that's information that you have no idea about. The same thing's happening for lineal footage of panel cutting, routing, interior routing, for instance, lineal edge banding feet, and how fast can your edge bander apply edge banding per minute? How many feet can it do? How long does it take someone to put together a drawer box or mount one of those, whatever it is in your product? We can automate that to give you a real project price with the same amount of control on the left, such as sales tax, custom amounts, naming those amounts, and adding those amounts as well. How those things are set are very easy within Microvellum. We call those activity stations, and certain things like vertical drilling can be easily manipulated, defined here by just plugging in a certain number, such as 20 instead of 25, and of course adjusting a labor rate. The material values are set within the material, again completely accessible for you as the user to fit your exact needs. We've seen many aspects of the software and the process with how Microvellum can streamline the way that you work, but we've really just scratched the surface. We hope, though, this demonstration has been educational for you and beneficial for your business.